Oh, oh, oh.
Are you hungry? Can you hear me? Are you okay?
Binta's fingers ached as she counted the crumpled bills for the third time. $42. That was all that stood between her and complete destitution. The small apartment she rented above the laundromat had already received 2 eviction notices, and Mrs. Chen downstairs was losing patience. At 25, this wasn't how she'd imagined her life would turn out. The nursing degree she'd worked herself half to death for sat unused in a frame beside her bed. No hospital would hire her without proper immigration papers, and the legal fees to fix her status had drained every cent she'd saved. Her student visa had expired 8 months ago, and now she existed in the shadows of Philadelphia's Koreatown, invisible and desperate. The October wind cut through her thin jacket as she hurried down the alley behind Hand's Market, where Mr. Hand sometimes left day-old bread in a box by the dumpster. It wasn't charity if you didn't ask for it, she told herself. That's what kept her dignity intact, even as everything else crumbled. That's when she saw him. A man lay crumpled against the brick wall, his body folded in on itself like discarded paper. His clothes, once expensive, she could tell, were torn and stained with something dark that might have been blood. His face was swollen, one eye completely shut, lips split and crusted. Black hair fell across his forehead, matted with dirt and something else she didn't want to identify. Binta froze. Every survival instinct screamed at her to walk away. Getting involved meant attention, questions, possibly police. She couldn't afford any of that. She took 3 steps past him. Then she heard it, a wet, rattling breath that spoke of broken ribs and punctured lungs. The kind of sound she'd learned to recognize during her clinical rotations, back when she still believed hard work and good intentions were enough. "Damn it," she whispered, turning back. Up close, he looked worse. Someone had beaten him methodically, professionally. This wasn't a random mugging. His right hand was bent at an unnatural angle, and when she pressed her fingers to his neck, his pulse fluttered weakly beneath skin that burned with fever. "Hey," she said softly, patting his unmarked cheek. "Can you hear me?" His one good eye cracked open. Even swollen and bloodshot, it was striking, dark and deep-set, with an intensity that seemed wrong for someone barely clinging to consciousness. He tried to speak, but only blood bubbled from his lips. "Don't talk, save your strength." Binta looked around the empty alley. No phone to call 911, and even if she did, the questions would come. Where did she live? What was her status? Could they see some identification? She couldn't take him to a hospital, but she couldn't leave him to die either. The decision surprised her with its swiftness. She'd spent months being careful, invisible, safe. But some part of her, the part that had dreamed of healing people, of making a difference, refused to let this stranger become just another casualty of a city that chewed people up and spat them out. "I'm going to help you," she said, though she had no idea how. "But you have to try to move." Getting him up the narrow stairs to her apartment took 20 minutes and every ounce of strength she possessed. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, and though lean, his weight bore down on her shoulders until her legs shook. He drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes mumbling in Korean, other times making sounds that were barely human. Inside her apartment, she laid him on her only bed and immediately began assessing the damage with hands that remembered their training. 3 broken ribs at least. Possible internal bleeding, though his abdomen wasn't rigid. The hand was definitely broken. Lacerations across his back suggested he'd been whipped with something metal. Burns on his chest, cigarettes, she realized with a sick twist in her stomach. This was torture. Who was this man? She had no medical supplies beyond a basic first aid kit and whatever she could improvise. But she had knowledge, and right now, that would have to be enough. She cleaned his wounds with boiled water and the last of her rubbing alcohol, her light brown hands steady despite the fear coiling in her chest. When she bound his ribs with strips torn from her only spare sheet, he woke fully for the first time and screamed, a sound that tore through her small space and probably woke the neighbors. I'm sorry," she whispered, pressing her palm against his forehead. I know it hurts, but you'll die if I don't do this. His good eye found hers, and for a moment something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or gratitude. Then he passed out again. For 3 days, he burned with fever. Binta stayed by his side, sleeping in snatches on the small rug beside the bed, waking every few hours to check his pulse and breathing. She fed him water with a spoon, drop by drop, and when he became delirious, raving in Korean about blood and betrayal and someone named Jaiwon, she held him down and whispered soothing nonsense until he calmed. Her $42 became $38, then $23 as she bought rice and eggs and the cheapest antibiotics she could find at the pharmacy, veterinary grade, meant for fish, but the internet said they worked on humans too. She dissolved them in water and made him swallow, praying she wasn't making things worse. On the 4th day, the fever broke. She woke to find him watching her with both eyes. The swelling had gone down enough for him to open the damaged one. In the morning light filtering through her thin curtains, she could finally see his face properly. He was younger than she'd thought, maybe 30 at most, and despite the bruising and cuts, he was striking. Sharp jawline, high cheekbones, a mouth that probably smiled rarely but beautifully. "You're awake," she said unnecessarily. He tried to sit up, winced and fell back. When he spoke, his voice was rough as gravel. "Where am I?" "My apartment. You were," she hesitated. "I found you in an alley. You were hurt." His eyes swept the room, taking in the peeling paint, the hot plate she used for cooking, the stack of unpaid bills on her makeshift table. "Why did you help me?" It was a strange question, asked with genuine confusion, as if kindness was a foreign concept. "You needed help," Binta said simply. He studied her face for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, "What's your name?" Binta Diallo." "I'm Huming," he paused. "Thank you, Binta, you saved my life." "You're not saved yet. You need real medical attention. Hospital, antibiotics, probably surgery on that hand." "No hospitals." The sharpness in his voice startled her. "No police, no hospitals, no questions. Promise me." "But..." "Promise me." His good hand shot out and grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. There was something desperate in his eyes, something that spoke of dangers she couldn't imagine. "Okay," she said slowly. "No hospitals." He released her and closed his eyes. "How long have I been here?" 4 days. 4, he struggled to sit up again, and this time managed it, though his face went gray with pain. "I need to make a phone call. Do you have a phone?" "No service. Couldn't pay the bill." He looked at her again, really looked at her this time. Taking in her worn clothes, the apartment that barely qualified as shelter, the exhaustion etched into her features. She saw the moment understanding dawned, that she was as desperate as he'd been when she found him, maybe more so. "I can pay you," he said, "for helping me, for the trouble." Pride flared hot in her chest. "I don't want your money." "Everyone wants money." "I wanted you to live, that's all." Something shifted in his expression, surprise, maybe, or suspicion, as if he couldn't quite believe someone like her existed in the same world as him. "I still need to make a call," he said finally. "It's urgent." Binta considered this. She'd come this far, broken this many of her own rules. What was one more? "There's a payphone 2 blocks away, but you can't walk that far yet. You'll tear something open." "Then I'll crawl if I have to." The determination in his voice told her he meant it. This man, this Huming, was someone used to getting what he wanted, used to pushing through obstacles through sheer force of will. It should have frightened her. Instead, it made her curious. Who was he? What had he done to deserve that beating? And why did the thought of him leaving her apartment fill her with something that felt strangely like loss? "Tomorrow," she said. "If you can stand without passing out, I'll help you get to the phone tomorrow." He nodded slowly, then looked down at his chest. At some point while treating him, she'd had to cut away his shirt. His torso was lean and muscled, marked with old scars that told stories of a violent life. He seemed to notice her looking and reached for the blanket with his uninjured hand, covering himself with a modesty that seemed at odds with everything else about him. "You said your name was Binta," he said, That's not Korean. I'm from Senegal, West Africa. She smiled slightly. What gave it away, the accent or the fact that I don't look even remotely Korean? The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. How did you end up here? Long story. Involves dreams, bad decisions, and immigration lawyers who take your money and disappear. She shrugged. The usual American immigrant tale. You're here illegally. It wasn't a question. Binta's spine stiffened. Are you going to report me? Because I saved your life, so that would be pretty ungrateful. I'm not going to report you. He shifted slightly, trying to find a more comfortable position. I'm just trying to understand why someone in your position would risk everything to help a stranger. Maybe I'm just stupid. No, he said softly. You're not stupid. Reckless, perhaps, compassionate to the point of self-destruction, but not stupid. The way he said it with such certainty made heat rise to her cheeks. She stood abruptly. You should rest. I'll make some soup. As she busied herself at the hot plate, stirring rice and the last of her vegetables into something resembling a meal, she felt his eyes on her back. It wasn't uncomfortable exactly, but it was intense. Like he was trying to memorize her or figure out a puzzle she didn't know she presented. Binta, he said after a while. Yes. When I make that phone call tomorrow, things are going to change. People will come for me, and when they do, he paused. You should forget you ever found me. Forget my name, forget my face. Go about your life as if none of this happened. She turned to face him. Why? Because I'm not a good man. His voice was flat, emotionless. And the people I'm connected to are worse. You helped me and I'm grateful, but that gratitude won't protect you from what's coming. What's coming? He smiled then, but it was a terrible smile, empty of warmth. War. Before she could ask what he meant, he closed his eyes and turned his face away, signaling the conversation was over. But Binta stood there for a long moment, wooden spoon dripping in her hand, wondering what exactly she'd brought into her home. And why, despite the warning, despite the obvious danger, she didn't regret it at all. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall, covering Philadelphia's streets in white. Inside, a young woman with light brown skin and eyes full of stubborn hope tended to a man whose darkness was absolute. Neither of them knew that in 24 hours, everything would change. And neither of them knew that the phone call Hu Ming was so desperate to make would set in motion events that would bind them together in ways neither mercy nor power could break. The payphone stood on the corner of 5th and Vine, half hidden between a Korean barbecue restaurant and a shop selling imported cosmetics. Binta kept one arm wrapped around Hu Ming's waist as they made their slow, painful progress down the sidewalk. He'd insisted on getting dressed, pulling on the clothes she'd washed and mended as best she could. The expensive fabric was ruined, but he wore the tattered suit like armor. Every few steps, he had to stop and breathe through the pain. His ribs were healing, but not fast enough. The hand she'd splinted with chopsticks and medical tape hung useless at his side. We can go back, Binta said for the 3rd time. No, his jaw was set, teeth gritted. Keep going. It took them 15 minutes to walk 2 blocks. By the time they reached the payphone, sweat beaded on Hu Ming's forehead despite the cold. Binta pulled out the quarters she'd been saving for laundry and handed them to him. He dialed with his good hand, each number pressed with deliberate precision. Then he waited, his body tense beside her. Someone answered. Hu Ming spoke in rapid Korean, his voice low and urgent. Binta couldn't understand the words, but she caught the tone, authority mixed with fury. This was a man used to giving orders, not taking them. Whatever had happened to put him in that alley, it hadn't broken that core of steel inside him. The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes. When he hung up, his expression was unreadable. They're coming, Binta asked. Yes, he leaned heavily against the phone booth. 30 minutes, maybe less. Who's coming? He looked at her then, really looked at her. His dark eyes held something she couldn't name, regret, maybe, or resignation. My brother, and others. Your brother did this to you. No, a muscle jumped in his jaw. My brother's men will have questions about who did this to me, and when they find out, he trailed off, shaking his head. You should go now before they arrive. I'm not leaving you alone on a street corner. Binta. Don't. She tightened her grip on his waist. You can barely stand. I'm staying until your people get here. He studied her face as if memorizing it, then nodded slowly. You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. You clearly haven't met enough women. That almost smile flickered across his lips again, but it died quickly when a black SUV turned the corner, followed by two more. They moved with predatory precision, blocking off the street at both ends. Doors opened simultaneously, and men in dark suits emerged. Binta's breath caught. These weren't ordinary men. They moved like soldiers, weapons barely concealed beneath expensive jackets. Their eyes swept the area with professional efficiency, cataloging threats and exits in seconds. One man approached differently. He was taller than the others, broader through the shoulders, with the same sharp features as Huming but harder somehow. Colder. When he saw Huming leaning against the payphone, his face transformed, shock, then rage so pure it made Binta want to step back. Hi, Young, Huming said quietly, brother. The man, Huming's brother, closed the distance in 3 strides. His hands gripped Huming's shoulders and Binta saw them shake. Who did this? Tell me now, and I'll have their heart in a box by midnight. Jaiwan, Huming's voice was flat. It was Jaiwan's people. The temperature around them seemed to drop 10 degrees. The brother's face went blank, empty in a way that was somehow more terrifying than anger. That treacherous snake! I told you he couldn't be trusted. You were right, Tiyong. You're always right. Huming swayed slightly, and Binta steadied him without thinking. That's when Tiyong seemed to notice her for the first time. His eyes, so like Huming's but without any warmth, raked over her. Taking in her worn jacket, her protective stance, the way Huming leaned on her. Who is this? The question was directed at Huming, but felt like an accusation aimed at her. The woman who saved my life, Huming said. Binta Diallo, she found me and... Get in the car. Tiyong's voice cut through the explanation. Medical team is waiting. We'll debrief when you're stable. 2 men moved forward to take Huming from her. She let them, stepping back as they carefully loaded him into the middle SUV. But Huming caught her wrist with his good hand. Thank you, he said. His eyes held hers for a long moment. I won't forget what you did. Then they took him, and the door slammed shut between them. Tiyong remained on the sidewalk, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. You found my brother in an alley. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Yes. And you brought him to your home, treated his injuries, kept him hidden for days. Each statement was delivered in the same neutral tone, but Binta heard the knife edge beneath. Why? Because he was dying. Most people would have called the police, or walked away. I'm not most people. Something flickered in Tiyong's eyes, amusement maybe or respect. No, I can see that. He pulled out a wallet and extracted a thick stack of bills. For your trouble, and your silence. Binta looked at the money, more cash than she'd seen in months, and felt something cold settle in her stomach. I don't want your money. Everyone wants money. Your brother said the same thing. You're both wrong. She turned to leave. Wait, Tiyong's voice stopped her. When she looked back, he was holding out a business card, plain white, embossed with a single phone number. If you ever need anything, help, protection, money, call this number. I won't need to call. Keep it anyway. He pressed the card into her hand. My brother doesn't trust easily. If he trusts you, then you must be someone worth knowing. The SUVs pulled away moments later, leaving Binta standing alone on the corner with a business card burning in her pocket and the ghost of Huming's touch still on her wrist. She walked home in a daze, her mind replaying everything that had just happened. The guns, the cold efficiency, the way those men had moved like violence was second nature, and Tiyong's words, if you ever need anything. What kind of people were they? The answer came 3 days later. Binta was heating water for tea when someone knocked on her door. Not the tentative tap of Mrs. Chen collecting rent, but a firm, authoritative knock that made her heart jump. She opened it to find a woman in an immaculate black suit, holding a briefcase. Behind her stood two large men who radiated the same dangerous competence as the ones who'd picked up Huming. Miss Diallo, the woman's English was perfect, barely accented. My name is Sumai Park. I'm here on behalf of Huming Park. May I come in? Binta wanted to say no. Every instinct screamed that letting these people into her life further was a mistake. But curiosity won, as it always did. The woman entered alone. Leaving her guards in the hallway, she set the briefcase on Binta's small table and opened it with practiced efficiency. Mr. Park wishes to thank you properly for saving his life, Sumai said. He's asked me to offer you compensation and to ensure you face no repercussions from your association with him. I told his brother I don't want money. This isn't just money. Sumai pulled out a folder. Inside, you'll find payment of all outstanding debts, rent, utilities, and medical school loans. Additionally, there's a retainer for an immigration attorney, one of the best in the country. He's already begun work on your case. Binta stared at the folder as if it might bite. I can't accept this. You can and you will. Mr. Park is not a man who leaves debts unpaid. Sumai's expression softened slightly. He told me about your situation, about the nursing degree you can't use, the dreams you had to put aside. He wants to give you the chance to reclaim those dreams. Why? He doesn't even know me. He knows you risked everything to help him when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. In his world, that kind of courage is rare, priceless, even. Sumai placed a second card on the table. This one had a name and phone number. This is his private number. He wants you to call him when you're ready. I don't understand what's happening. Sumai stood, smoothing her suit. Mr. Park operates in a world with very specific rules. One of those rules is that debts must be honored. You saved his life. Therefore, he owes you a life debt. In his culture, in his world, that's not something taken lightly. After the woman left, Binta sat at her table and opened the folder with shaking hands. Bank statements showing zero balances on accounts that had been drowning in red. A contract with a law firm she'd only dreamed of affording. A letter from the attorney outlining a clear path to legal residency. It was everything she needed, everything she'd been struggling for. And she felt like she'd just sold her soul. That night, unable to sleep, she called the private number. Huming answered on the second ring. Binta. Just her name, said in that low voice, and something in her chest tightened. I can't accept this, she said. It's too much. It's not enough. There was a pause. You gave me my life back. Everything I'm offering you is a fraction of what that's worth. But I didn't do it for payment. I did it because it was right. I know. His voice softened. That's why I'm doing this. Not because I think you expect it, but because I can't live with the knowledge that the woman who saved me is suffering when I have the power to help. Your brother called it a life debt. It is, and in my world that bond isn't easily broken. He paused again, and she heard pain in his voice, physical or emotional, she couldn't tell. Binta, I need you to understand something. The men who hurt me are still out there. They know someone helped me survive. They'll be looking for you. Cold fear washed over her. What? That's why I had Sumai arrange protection. There are people watching your building now. You won't see them, but they're there. And the immigration attorney, getting you legal status means you're no longer invisible. Invisible people are easy to hurt. Legal residents with connections are harder to touch. You're saying you put me in danger. No, I'm saying the danger already exists and I'm making sure you survive it. His voice hardened. The people who did this to me don't leave witnesses. They would have found you eventually. This way you have protection, resources, a chance. Binta's mind spun. A week ago, her biggest problem was making rent. Now she was caught in some kind of criminal underworld power struggle, protected by a man she'd found bleeding in an alley. Who are you? She whispered. Really? Silence stretched between them. Then, come to dinner tomorrow night. I'll tell you everything. You deserve the truth before you decide whether to accept my help or walk away. And if I walk away? Then I'll make sure you're protected anyway. The debt exists whether you acknowledge it or not. He gave her an address in one of Philadelphia's most expensive neighborhoods. 8 o'clock. A car will pick you up at 7:30. Fuming. Please, Binta, let me explain. Then you can make an informed choice. Against her better judgment, she agreed. The next evening, a sleek black car arrived precisely at 7:30. The driver was polite, professional, and completely silent during the 20-minute drive through the city. They passed through neighborhoods that grew progressively wealthier, until finally pulling up to a gate that opened onto private grounds. The house beyond was stunning, modern architecture blending with traditional Korean elements, all clean lines and understated elegance. Nothing like the ostentatious mansions she'd imagined. Huming met her at the door. He looked different in proper lighting, wearing clothes that fit. The bruises had faded to yellow-green, and though he still moved carefully, the fragile quality was gone. In its place was something commanding, powerful. He was beautiful, she realized with a start. Sharp-featured and intense, with the kind of presence that made it hard to look away. "You came," he said and smiled. A real smile this time, warm and genuine. "I'm here for answers." "And you'll get them," he gestured inside. "Please." The interior was beautiful but lived in. Books on shelves, art on walls that looked chosen for personal taste rather than investment value. They passed through to a dining room where a table was set for two. "I had my chef prepare traditional Korean food," Huming said, "but I can have something else made if you don't like it." "It's fine." Binta sat, feeling wildly out of place in her best dress, which was still shabby compared to everything around her. Huming sat across from her, his dark eyes serious. "I promised you the truth, so here it is. My name is Huming Park. I'm 30 years old, and I'm the second in command of the park organization, what you would call the Korean Mafia." The words hung in the air between them. Binta had suspected something like this, but hearing it stated so plainly still felt like a punch to the gut. "I inherited this life," he continued. "My father built the organization from nothing. When he died 5 years ago, my brother Taeyong took over as leader. I handle operations in the Northeast. Drugs, gambling, protection, all the usual criminal enterprises." He said it without pride or shame, just simple fact. "The man who ordered my torture, Jaewon, was once our ally. He decided he wanted my territory. The beating was a message." "What message?" "That I'm weak, that he can take whatever he wants." Huming's expression hardened. He was wrong. "Are you going to kill him?" "Yes." No hesitation, no apology. Binta should have stood up and left, should have run from this man and his world of violence. But she stayed seated, held by something she couldn't name. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because I want you to understand what accepting my help means. It means being connected to me, to my world, and that world is dangerous." He leaned forward. "But it also means you'll never be helpless again, never be invisible, never be afraid that one wrong move will destroy everything you've built." "That's not the same as being free." "No," he agreed. "It's not, but freedom is overrated when you're starving in an alley." The words stung because they were true. Binta had been free in her tiny apartment, free and drowning. "What do you want from me?" she asked quietly. Huming was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "I don't know yet, maybe nothing, maybe everything." He reached across the table, his hand, still bandaged, stopping just short of touching hers. "You saw me at my weakest. You could have let me die and your life would be simpler, but you didn't. You gave me mercy when I deserved none, and I've been thinking about that every day since." Huming. The sharp crack of gunfire shattered the moment. Huming moved with shocking speed, grabbing Binta and pulling her down as bullets tore through the dining room window. Glass rained down around them, and somewhere in the house, alarms began to wail. Huming covered her body with his own, his weight pressing her into the carpet. She felt his heart hammering against her back, heard him shouting orders in Korean. More gunfire, shouting, then silence sudden and absolute. Huming lifted his head slowly. Are you hurt? Binta shook her head, unable to speak. Her ears rang from the gunshots and her whole body trembled. Stay down. He rolled off her and grabbed something from beneath the table, a gun, she realized with numb shock. He'd had a weapon within reach the entire time. Men rushed into the room, Taeyong and at least 6 others, all armed. They spoke rapidly in Korean, and Binta caught one word repeated over and over, Jaiwon. Taeyong's gaze found her on the ground, and his expression shifted. Get her out of here. No, Huming's voice was steel. She stays with me. Hyung, this is. She stays. Huming helped Binta to her feet, his hand gentle despite the violence crackling in the air around them. Are you okay? She nodded, though she wasn't okay at all. I'm sorry, he said quietly for her ears alone. I didn't think they'd move this fast. Who? Jaiwon's men. They were watching the house. They saw you arrive. His jaw clenched. This is my fault. I put you in the line of fire. Taeyong approached, his expression grim. We caught one alive. He confirmed Jaiwon ordered the hit. He wants you dead, and he wants everyone connected to you dead too. Then we end this tonight. Huming's voice was cold, empty. The warmth from moments ago had vanished completely. Call everyone, full mobilization. Hyung. Now, Taeyong, he turned to Binta. I have to leave. My men will take you somewhere safe until this is over. No, the word came out before she could stop it. Everyone turned to stare at her. I'm not hiding while you go off to war, she said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. You said I deserve to make an informed choice. Well, I'm making it now. I'm staying. Binta, you don't understand what? I understand perfectly. She met his eyes. You're going to kill people tonight, maybe die yourself, and I'm choosing to be here when you come back. Something flickered across his face, surprise, gratitude, and something else. Something that looked almost like hope. You're insane, Taeyong muttered. Probably, Binta agreed. Huming smiled then, fierce and sharp. Okay, you can stay, but when I come back... He stepped closer, and his hand cupped her cheek with unexpected tenderness. When I come back, we're going to have a very serious conversation about boundaries and self-preservation. Looking forward to it. He studied her face for another heartbeat, then turned to his brother. Let's go finish this. The men filed out, leaving Binta alone in a shot-up dining room with 2 guards posted at the door, and the taste of fear still sharp on her tongue. She'd made her choice. For better or worse, she was bound to Huming Park now, a man who dealt in violence and commanded respect through fear. A man who'd shown her more consideration in a week than anyone had in years. A man who might not survive the night. Outside, engines roared to life. Inside, Binta sat down at the ruined table and waited for him to come home. 3 hours passed like years. Binta sat in a guest room on the 2nd floor, away from the shattered dining room. One of the guards, a younger man who introduced himself as Minyi, had brought her tea and tried to make awkward conversation. She appreciated the gesture but couldn't focus on small talk while Huming was out there somewhere, hunting or being hunted. Her phone buzzed. The immigration attorney, confirming their first appointment. Real life, continuing as if she hadn't just been shot at. As if she hadn't just committed herself to a man who lived by rules she barely understood. She should call someone. Her cousin in Atlanta, maybe. Tell her what was happening. But what would she say? I saved a Mafia boss and now I'm waiting in his house while he wages war on his enemies. It sounded insane even in her own head. The door opened. Sumai, the woman from before, entered carrying clothing. I thought you might want to change. The dress has glass in it. Binta looked down and realized she was still brushing tiny shards from her lap. Thank you. Sumai set the clothes on the bed, designer labels, expensive fabrics, all in Binta's size. How did you know what would fit? Mr. Park is very detail-oriented. Sumai's expression remained neutral, but something in her tone suggested approval. He notices things about people. How long have you worked for him? 7 years, since I was 23. Sumai moved to the window, checking the street below with practiced vigilance. He saved my life too, in a way. My family owed money to loan sharks. Terrible people. When my father couldn't pay, they came for my sister. She was 16. Binta's chest tightened. What happened? Mr. Park happened. He bought the debt, canceled it, and made sure those men never hurt anyone again. Sumai turned back, her eyes serious. People think he's just another gangster, and maybe he is, but he has rules, lines he won't cross. Children, women who can't protect themselves, they're off limits. Always. That's a low bar for decency. In this world, any bar is higher than most manage. Sumai moved toward the door. He's a good man in a bad business, Miss Diallo. That's rare enough to be worth something. After she left, Binta changed into the clothes, black pants, and a soft sweater that felt like heaven against her skin. She caught her reflection in the mirror. Light brown skin still smooth despite months of stress, dark eyes wide with an emotion she couldn't name. Her hair, usually pulled back in a practical bun, had come loose during the attack. She looked wild, young, frightened. She looked alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. The truth hit her then. She wasn't just waiting for Huming to return. She was hoping he would, needing him too. This man she'd known for barely a week had become important to her in ways that defied logic. More time crawled by, 4 hours, 5. At 2 a.m., she heard vehicles returning, doors slamming, voices raised in Korean, triumphant and exhausted. Binta rushed downstairs before Minyi could stop her. The entryway was chaos. Men streamed in, some wounded, all exhausted. They tracked blood across expensive rugs, whose blood she couldn't tell. The air reeked of gunpowder and sweat. Then she saw him. Huming stood near the center, giving orders to someone on his phone. His white shirt was ruined, spattered with dark stains. A fresh cut bled above his eyebrow, but he was standing, alive, whole. Their eyes met across the crowded room. He ended the call and moved toward her, weaving through his men with single-minded focus. When he reached her, he stopped, studying her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You're hurt," she said, reaching for the cut on his forehead. He caught her wrist gently. "It's nothing, just a graze." "Let me look at it." "Binta." "Let me look at it," she repeated more firmly. Something in his expression softened. He nodded and let her lead him to a bathroom on the first floor. She made him sit on the closed toilet while she cleaned the wound with supplies from the medicine cabinet. "Is he dead?" she asked quietly. "Jaiwan." "Yes." The simple confirmation should have horrified her. Instead, she felt only relief. "Good." Huming's eyes widened slightly. "You don't mean that." "I do." She dabbed antiseptic on the cut, ignoring his wince. "He tried to kill you. Tonight he tried to kill me. I'm not going to pretend I'm sorry he's gone." "You're full of surprises, Binta Diallo." "So are you, Huming Park." She finished bandaging the wound and stepped back. "Anyone else hurt badly?" "2 men with gunshot wounds, already on their way to our doctor, a few more with minor injuries." He stood, towering over her in the small space. "We were lucky. It could have been much worse." "Was it worth it?" "That depends." He moved closer, backing her gently against the sink, not threatening, just present, overwhelming. "What are we measuring worth against?" Her heart hammered. "I don't know, life, morality, peace." "I'll never have peace. That ship sailed when I was 12 years old and my father put a gun in my hand." His voice was matter-of-fact, no self-pity. "But life, yes. My life, my brother's life, the lives of everyone who depends on me, those were worth fighting for." "And me," the question slipped out before she could stop it. "Was I worth it?" His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing along her jawline. "You were worth everything." The kiss happened so naturally it felt inevitable. His lips on hers, gentle despite the violence still crackling through him. She tasted blood and smoke and something else, desperation, maybe, or hunger. Her hands fisted in his ruined shirt, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed that this was crazy, impossible, wrong. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Huming rested his forehead against hers. "I shouldn't have done that," he murmured. No, she agreed. You shouldn't have. Are you angry? She considered the question honestly. No, I'm terrified, but not angry. He pulled back enough to see her face. Terrified of me. Of this, of what I'm feeling, of how fast everything is moving. She met his eyes. A week ago, I was invisible. Nobody. Now I'm standing in a bathroom with a man who just killed someone, and all I can think about is kissing him again. A smile ghosted across his lips. That can be arranged. Huming, this is serious. I know, the smile faded. Binta, I need you to understand something. What I'm feeling for you, it's not gratitude. It's not just life debt or obligation, it's... He searched for words. It's something I've never felt before, and in my world, feelings are dangerous. They're weaknesses that enemies exploit. So what are you saying? I'm saying that if you stay in my life, you become a target. Forever. People will try to hurt you to get to me. They'll use you as leverage. And I can protect you, I will protect you, but I can't guarantee your safety. Not completely. And if I walk away? Pain flickered across his face. Then I let you go, make sure you're taken care of from a distance, never contact you again. The thought of never seeing him again hurt more than it should. That's not what I want. What do you want? Binta thought about her life before, the loneliness, the constant fear, the slow erosion of hope. Then she thought about the past week, the purpose she'd felt caring for him, the way he looked at her like she mattered, like she was visible. I want to know where this goes, she said finally. I want to see if what we're feeling is real or just adrenaline and gratitude. And I want to do it honestly, with my eyes open to who you are and what you do. Huming studied her for a long moment. You're sure? No, but I'm choosing it anyway. He kissed her again, deeper this time. When they finally emerged from the bathroom, Ti-Yong was waiting in the hallway, arms crossed. We need to talk, he said, his expression grim. In Huming's study, Ti-Yong paced while Binta sat on a leather sofa and Huming leaned against his desk. The room was lined with books in Korean and English, maps of the city marked with notations she couldn't read. Jaewon is dead, but his organization isn't, Ti-Yong said. His lieutenant, a man named Dong Hyun, has already claimed leadership. He's calling for retaliation. Of course he is. Huming's voice was tired. How long do we have? Days, maybe. He's consolidating power first, but it's coming. Then we prepare. Double security, safe houses for key people, reach out to our allies. Hyung, Ti-Yong stopped packing and looked directly at Binta. This is about her. Silence filled the room. Explain, Huming said quietly. Dong Hyun knows you killed Jaewon because of the attack here. He knows a woman was with you during the shooting. His men have been asking questions in Koreatown. Ti-Yong's expression was apologetic but firm. They know her name, where she lived. They know you've been protecting her. Ice flooded Binta's veins. They're coming after me. They're going to try, Ti-Yong confirmed. Your leverage. If they take you, they can force Huming's hand, make him negotiate from weakness. Huming was off the desk in an instant, his body coiled with tension. Then we move her, tonight, somewhere they can't find her. Where? Ti-Yong challenged. They have reached too, and moving her just confirms she's important, makes her more valuable as a target. So what's the alternative? Leave her exposed? No, Ti-Yong met his brother's eyes. Make her untouchable. How? Ti-Yong glanced at Binta, then back to Huming. Marry her. The words hung in the air, like a bomb waiting to detonate. What? Binta and Huming said simultaneously. In our world, family is sacred, Ti-Yong explained. If she's your wife, she's a park. Attacking her means declaring war on our entire organization. It changes the calculation. That's insane, Binta said. We barely know each other. You know enough. Ti-Yong's tone was pragmatic. You saved his life. He trusts you. And unless I'm completely blind, there's something between you two already. Huming ran a hand through his hair. Ti-Yong, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. It doesn't have to be real, just legal and public. A marriage certificate and an announcement. After things settle, you can annul it quietly if you want. But right now, it's the best protection we can offer her. There has to be another way. Name it. When Huming stayed silent, Taeyong pressed on. You brought her into this world. You made her important to you. Now you have to protect her, and this is how. Binta's mind spun. Marriage. To a man she'd known for 8 days. A man who killed people and ran criminal enterprises. It was absurd. It was also logical, in a twisted way. In Huming's world, the rules were different. Family bonds meant something concrete, something enforceable through respect and fear. What do you think? Huming asked her quietly. She met his eyes. Honestly, I think this is the craziest thing I've ever heard, but I also think your brother is right about one thing. You did bring me into this world, and I chose to stay, so if this is what it takes to survive. She took a breath. Then okay, yes. Binta. I mean it. If marrying you keeps me alive long enough to figure out what this is between us, then I'll do it. She stood, meeting him eye to eye. On one condition. Name it. When this is over, when the danger passes, you give me a real choice. Not marriage for protection or obligation, but the chance to choose you, or not, based on who we actually are to each other. Something fierce and tender crossed his face. Deal. Taeyong nodded approvingly. I'll make the arrangements. We'll do it tomorrow. Small ceremony, immediate publicity. By tomorrow night, every organization in the city will know she's off limits. He left, closing the door behind him. Binta and Huming stood in silence, the weight of what they'd just agreed to settling over them. I'm sorry, Huming said finally. This isn't how I imagined. Proposing, she laughed, slightly hysterical. Yeah, it's not exactly romantic. No, he moved closer, taking her hands in his. But Binta, I need you to know something. This might be starting as protection, as strategy. But what I feel for you, that's real. I don't know where it goes or what it becomes, but it's real. I believe you, and surprisingly she did. So what happens now? Now I take you upstairs, make sure you're comfortable, and probably don't sleep at all because I'll be too busy arranging security. He smiled ruefully. Welcome to my world. Your world is exhausting. Yes, but it's never boring. She couldn't argue with that. The next day passed in a blur. Sumai arrived with an elegant dress, cream silk that complemented Binta's skin beautifully. An official came to the house with papers. Taeyong arranged everything with ruthless efficiency. By evening, Binta stood in Huming's living room wearing a dress worth more than her old apartment, about to marry a man whose last name she'd only just learned. The ceremony was brief. No guests beyond Taeyong and Sumai as witnesses. The official spoke in English for Binta's benefit, his words formal and binding. When he asked if she took Huming Park as her husband, she heard her own voice, steady, clear, say, I do. Huming's voice was equally steady when he made his vow. They signed papers. The official stamped documents. And just like that, Binta Diallo became Binta Park. You may kiss your bride, the official said. Huming looked at her, a question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. His kiss was gentle, chaste, appropriate for the audience. But his hand on her waist trembled slightly, and she knew he felt the same surreal dislocation she did. After the official left, Taeyong opened champagne. To my new sister-in-law, he said, raising his glass. Welcome to the family. Binta drank, the bubbles sharp on her tongue. Does this mean you'll stop glaring at me? Probably not, but I'll glare with more respect. Sumai laughed, a surprisingly warm sound. He's actually pleased, Miss Park. He just shows it poorly. It's Mrs. Park now, Taeyong corrected. Might as well get used to it. That night, after everyone left, Binta stood in Huming's bedroom, technically their bedroom now, staring at the bed that suddenly felt monumentally significant. I can sleep in one of the guest rooms, Huming said from the doorway. I don't expect, this doesn't have to be. It's okay, she turned to face him. We're married, we should probably get used to sharing space. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. That seems to be my pattern lately. He smiled and began unbuttoning his shirt, then stopped. I should warn you, the scars, from what happened in the alley and from before, they're not pleasant to look at. Huming, I've seen all of you already. Remember, I treated your injuries. That was different. You were a nurse then, now you're my wife. The word wife sent a strange thrill through her. Show me. He removed his shirt slowly. In the lamplight, she could see what she'd missed before in her frantic efforts to save him. The cigarette burns on his chest, yes, but also older scars. Knife wounds. What looked like a bullet graze. His body was a map of violence endured and survived. Binta crossed to him and placed her palm over his heart, feeling it beat strong and steady beneath scarred skin. You're beautiful. I'm broken. No, you're surviving. There's a difference. His arms came around her, pulling her close. They stood like that for a long moment, just breathing together. Then he kissed her forehead and released her. Get some rest, he said. I need to make some calls, check in with the security teams. I'll be up late. Okay. She changed in the bathroom, emerging in one of Huming's shirts. He'd offered it, and it was more comfortable than the silk nightgown Sumai had provided. When she climbed into bed, the sheets were impossibly soft, nothing like the rough cotton she was used to. Hours later, she woke to the sound of Huming finally coming to bed. He moved quietly, trying not to disturb her. But she was already awake, listening to him settle on the far side of the mattress, maintaining a careful distance. Huming, she whispered. Sorry, did I wake you? No, I was just thinking. About how weird it is that the worst week of my life somehow became the best week too. She felt rather than saw his smile in the darkness. I know what you mean. Are you okay, really? Define okay. Not in pain, not terrified, not regretting every choice that brought you here. He was quiet for a moment. My ribs hurt. I'm definitely worried about what comes next, but regret, no, not a single moment. Binta rolled over to face his silhouette in the dark. Not even the part where you got tortured. If that's what it took to meet you, I'd do it again. The words settled between them, heavy with meaning. Binta reached across the space separating them and found his hand. He laced his fingers through hers, holding tight. We're going to figure this out, she said. Whatever this is. Together. Together. They fell asleep like that, hands clasped across the darkness. Two broken people who'd found something neither expected in each other. Hope. But outside, in the shadowy corners of Philadelphia's underworld, Dong Hyun received word of the marriage. He stared at the photograph someone had taken of Binta leaving the house in her wedding dress, and a smile curved his lips. So, he said to his assembled lieutenants, Huming Park thinks a marriage certificate will protect her. It changes things, one man ventured. Attacking a Park family member. It changes nothing, Dong Hyun interrupted. She's not really family, she's a weakness, a crack in their armor, and I know exactly how to exploit it. He pulled out his phone and made a call. When someone answered, he spoke 2 words. Do it. 3 days later, Binta sat in the immigration lawyer's office, reviewing paperwork for her legal status application. Everything was progressing smoothly. Too smoothly, maybe. She'd learned to distrust easy solutions. Her new phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. She almost deleted it, but something made her open it instead. Inside was a photograph, her cousin's house in Atlanta, and a message, pretty cousin you have, would be a shame if something happened to her. Leave Huming Park or she pays for his sins. Binta's blood turned to ice. A second message followed, you have 24 hours to decide. Tell anyone and she dies. Run and she dies, your choice. She stared at the screen, her hands shaking. After everything, the marriage, the protection, the promises, they'd found a way to hurt her anyway. And the worst part? She believed them. These were people who'd tortured Huming for days. They wouldn't hesitate to kill an innocent woman to make a point. 24 hours. She had 24 hours to choose between the man she was falling for and the family she loved. Binta closed her eyes and made her decision. She stood, thanked the lawyer, and walked out of the office into the cold Philadelphia afternoon. Hugh Ming's guards followed at a discreet distance, unaware that everything was about to change. By tonight, one way or another, nothing would ever be the same again.